Hey everyone, welcome back to the Speak English Fluently podcast. We're so excited you're here with us today because we've got a fantastic topic that's going to boost your English skills while keeping it super engaging. Love versus infatuation.
Yes, love versus infatuation. A topic that's not only interesting but also packed with useful phrases and expressions that will really help you sound more fluent in English. And don't forget, there's a free PDF attached with all the idioms, phrasal verbs, and advanced words we'll be using in this episode. You can download it below and follow along with us.
And here's what we recommend. Grab a notebook and a pen right now. Trust us, you'll want to write down all the new phrases and sentences we cover today. And the best part? Every idiom, phrasal verb, and advanced word we mention will be highlighted on the screen with its meaning, so you can focus on learning them easily.
Exactly, and here's the secret to learning fast. You've got to repeat after us. Don't just sit there, get involved. Repeat each word or phrase out loud with us. You can always rewind if you need to, but saying it aloud really makes it stick.
That's right. The goal is for you to be active in this learning process. So if you want to truly improve your English, don't just listen. Repeat, practice, and get comfortable using these words in your own conversations.
Are you ready? This is going to be fun and full of insight, not just about love and infatuation, but also how you can describe them fluently in English. Let's jump right in. And I'm so excited to dive into this. It's so easy to confuse love and infatuation, especially in the beginning stages of a relationship. You meet someone, and suddenly it's like you can't stop thinking about them. It's all consuming. But sometimes that intensity fades away pretty quickly, and you're left wondering, was that really love? It's tricky.
Exactly. The funny thing is, both love and infatuation can make you feel like you're walking on air. Oh, that's a great expression, right? When you're so happy, you feel like you're floating, like nothing can bring you down.
Yes, walking on air. You heard it. That's when you're so full of joy, it feels like you're just gliding through life. Everything seems perfect, and you feel unstoppable. I remember the first time I traveled abroad. I was walking on air the entire trip. It was just one of those moments where everything felt surreal and exciting.
Totally. For me, it was when I got into my dream college. I was walking on air for weeks. Every little thing felt amazing because I was just so happy. It's that euphoric feeling that nothing can bring you down.
Yes, and it can happen in relationships too, right? You meet someone, and for the first few weeks or months, you're completely walking on air. It feels like nothing could go wrong. But of course, life has a way of grounding us eventually.
Exactly. Like when you start a new job, and for the first few days, everything is perfect. But as time goes on, the excitement fades. You were walking on air at the beginning, but eventually, reality sets in.
And sometimes, it's those little moments that make you feel like you're walking on air, like a surprise gift from someone special, or getting a compliment you weren't expecting. It's all about that joy that just makes you feel lighter.
Let's say it again together. Walking on air.
Yeah, walking on air.
That's right, walking on air.
Oh, and speaking of those amazing moments in life, there's another phrase that comes to mind, swept off your feet. This one's all about being completely taken by surprise in the best way, usually when someone or something just charms you beyond belief.
Swept off your feet. Oh, I love that. It's when something or someone makes you feel like you've been whisked away, like you're just overwhelmed with emotion or excitement. I've had that feeling before, like when I saw my favorite band live for the first time. The energy, the music. I was completely swept off my feet.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about big events. You can be swept off your feet by someone's kindness or thoughtfulness. Like imagine getting a surprise dinner from a friend when you're having a rough day. It's those little gestures that leave you feeling totally swept off your feet.
Yes. Or when you fall for someone and they do something so sweet that you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. That's being swept off your feet. When someone's charm or actions just catch you by surprise in the best way.
Exactly. It could be in a romantic relationship, but it could also be when you're experiencing something new and exciting, like your first day in a new city. You're exploring, seeing new sights, and you're just swept off your feet by the beauty of it all.
And don't forget, It can happen in friendships too. Like when a friend goes out of their way to help you, and you're just so grateful. That feeling of being supported and cared for can really sweep you off your feet.
Say it with us, swept off your feet.
Yeah, swept off your feet, you got it.
Exactly, swept off your feet.
Now, as much as we love those magical moments, sometimes things don't stay exciting forever. This is where the phrase fizzle out comes into play. It's when something starts off with a lot of energy or excitement, but then slowly loses momentum.
Fizzle out is such a perfect way to describe it. Like when you're in a new relationship and everything feels amazing at first. But over time, if there's no real connection, the excitement can start to fizzle out.
Exactly. I think it happens a lot with hobbies too. You get really into something at the beginning, like learning a new skill or starting a project. But after a while, your enthusiasm starts to fizzle out. It's just not as exciting as it was in the beginning.
And it can happen with friendships as well. Maybe you meet someone new and you're hanging out all the time, but eventually life gets in the way and the friendship starts to fizzle out. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just loses that initial spark.
Yes. And even at work, right? You might start a new job with so much excitement, but after a few months, the routine sets in and that initial enthusiasm begins to fizzle out. It's just part of life.
Totally. And sometimes when a relationship is based on infatuation rather than love, it can fizzle out pretty quickly. The intense feelings you had in the beginning start to fade and you realize that maybe it wasn't love after all. Let's hear it again. Fizzle out.
Yeah, fizzle out. You got that right.
Exactly, fizzle out. You know, one phrase that always comes up when we reflect on past experiences is in hindsight. It's when you look back at something and realize that you have a much clearer understanding of it now than you did back then.
Oh, in hindsight is so important. It's all about that reflection. Like, after a big decision, you might think, in hindsight, I should have done things differently. But at the time, you didn't have all the information or perspective.
Exactly. And it applies to so many situations. Like in hindsight, you might realize that a breakup was the best thing that could have happened, even though it felt terrible at the time.
Yes, and in hindsight, we often see things more clearly. Like when you look back at a job you left and realize, wow, that was definitely the right move. You couldn't see it then, but time gave you that perspective.
Totally. Or when you're looking back at a major life change and at the time you were scared or unsure, but in hindsight, you see it was exactly what you needed. It's all about seeing the bigger picture after the fact.
And let's be honest, in hindsight, we learn a lot about ourselves and our choices. It's the ability to look back and grow from our experiences.
Let's say it again, in hindsight.
Yeah, in hindsight, that's the one.
Exactly, in hindsight.
Now, we've all heard the phrase breakup, right? It's one of the most common ways to describe the end of a romantic relationship. But it's also used in other contexts, like friendships or even business partnerships.
Yes, break up. That's when two people decide to end their relationship. It could be after a few months or even years of being together. Like, they decided to break up after 5 years. It's such a common part of life, but it's never easy.
Exactly. You could say, they broke up because they realized they wanted different things. It's a phrase that's so straightforward, but it can carry so much emotion.
Yeah, and it doesn't just apply to romantic relationships either. Like, the band broke up after 10 years of making music together. It's the end of something, but it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it's just the next chapter.
Right. And sometimes a breakup is for the best, even though it's painful at first. For example, she felt much better after they broke up, which shows that ending the relationship helped her move on to something healthier. And, you know, it can also be used when a breakup is being considered but hasn't happened yet. Like, they're thinking about breaking up, which means it's still up in the air, but the relationship might be coming to an end.
Exactly. And you can even use it in business contexts, like the two partners decided to break up the company due to creative differences. It's not just personal, it applies to all sorts of situations where people or entities go their separate ways.
Say it with us. Break up. It's not always fun, but it happens.
Yeah, break up, you heard it.
That's right, break up. And speaking of breaking up, here's a phrase that we all love to hear after a conflict. Make up. It's when you resolve a disagreement or fight, and things go back to normal.
Oh yes, make up. It's the best feeling when you've been upset with someone, but you finally talk it out and resolve things. It's like a huge weight is lifted off your shoulders. For example, they had a big argument but they made up afterward, meaning everything is back to good terms.
Exactly. And it's not always romantic either. You can say, I'm so glad we made up after that misunderstanding, meaning you've smoothed things over and the relationship, whether it's a friendship or family, is back on track.
Totally. And it's such a relief, right? Like when you have a falling out with a friend or family member, and after a few days of not talking, you finally make up and everything feels right again. It's like the air is cleared.
100%. Or they always make up after a fight, no matter how bad it gets. It shows that even though there might be arguments, the relationship is strong enough to bounce back.
And you can use it in professional settings too, like the two companies made up after their business disagreement. It's a way of showing that they resolved their issues and can move forward.
Let's say it again. Make up. It's always a relief, right?
Yeah, make up, you got it.
One more time. Make up. Now, another phrase that pops up a lot, especially when things are falling apart, is fallout. This one's a bit more serious because it refers to a serious argument or disagreement that damages a relationship.
Yes, fall out. It's when something causes people to stop being on good terms. For example, they had a big argument and now they've fallen out. It means the argument was so intense that the relationship might be permanently affected.
Exactly. And it's not just romantic relationships. You could say, they've fallen out over money, which means a disagreement about finances has caused a major rift in their friendship or business relationship.
Right. Or, the team fell out after the project failed, meaning they blamed each other and now they're no longer working together smoothly. It's a way of showing that an argument has long-lasting consequences.
Yes, and it's not always immediate. Sometimes falling out happens gradually. Like, they slowly fell out of touch after moving to different cities. It's a natural drift apart, but it still results in the relationship not being as strong as it was.
Exactly. And it doesn't always have to be dramatic. You could say, they fell out over a silly misunderstanding, which shows that even small things can lead to a bigger fallout if they're not resolved.
Let's say it together. Fallout. It's serious when it happens.
Yeah, fall out. You heard it right.
Exactly. Fallout. One more time. Fallout.
And when people try to get back in someone's good graces after a fallout, they often try to patch things up. This one's great because it gives you a visual, like you're repairing something that's been broken.
Oh, patch things up. That's a good one. It's when you try to fix a relationship after something's gone wrong. For example, they had a big argument, but they're trying to patch things up, meaning they're working on repairing their friendship.
Exactly, and you can use it in so many situations. Like, he tried to patch things up with his colleague after their disagreement at work. It's all about making amends and moving forward.
Yes, it's not just about words, it's about actions too. You could say, she brought him a gift to patch things up after their fight. It shows that sometimes actions speak louder than words when it comes to making things right.
And you can even use it for more than just people. Like, they're trying to patch things up between the two companies after the failed merger. It's all about finding a way to fix what's been damaged.
Exactly. And let's not forget that patching things up isn't always easy, but it's worth it when the relationship is important. You could say, they've been through a lot, but they always find a way to patch things up after a fight. Say it with us. Patch things up. It's all about repair.
Yeah, patch things up. You got it.
One more time. Patch things up. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode. We've covered so many great phrases that are essential for talking about relationships and resolving conflicts.
Absolutely. And remember, if you want to practice these phrases and idioms, grab the free PDF we've included with this episode. It's packed with all the idioms, phrasal verbs, and advanced words we've talked about today.
Yes. And don't forget to repeat, rewind, and practice. The more you use these phrases, the more natural they'll feel in your conversations.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep practicing, and we'll see you next time on the Speak English Fluently podcast.